So Camille's asked me to talk about digital carbon footprint from our angle, which is sort of websites and AI and email. So yeah, well, every environmental webinar always has to start with a few scary stats. So um, you may not realize, but the internet accounts for more global emissions than the aviation industry. And it's in fact double the aviation industry, which surprises a lot of people because it's kind of invisible carbon, if you like. But every time you send an email, every time you visit a website, it leaves a carbon footprint. And we've been doing websites for 25 years now, and we've seen that footprint grow exponentially over the last decade as internet speeds have gotten faster, and what's possible with the internet has just accelerated, especially now with AI. So, just to put it in context, if you send a simple plain text email that has a carbon footprint of around 4 grams of CO2, add a couple of attachments, and you easily get up to 40 grams. And to put that in context, boiling a kettle, just a classic comparison, that generates around 60 grams. Okay, so you can see the issue just from emails. So easy things to do, to reduce your carbon footprint from an email point of view. Just think about who you're CCing. Do you need to add that attachment to everybody? Unsubscribe from newsletters. Remove your email signature from internal emails. Delete all your unwanted emails. We at SOZO, we have a digital declutter day once a year, and just get rid of all the old files, all the old emails that we don't need. But I'm mainly going to focus on websites and AI today. So an average website produces around 2 grams of CO2 every time someone visits a page. That's a single page, which doesn't sound a lot, but if you take a low traffic site, say with a couple of thousand visits a month, which is very typical, over a year, that equates to around 100,000 page views. So that creates more than 2 tons of carbon. And again, to put that in context, that's about 5,000 miles in a petrol car. Now, that's a standard site. If you take an e-commerce website, which gets much more traffic, we have some e-commerce sites that have millions of page views a year, and also lots of product imagery, very high-res imagery or video. So you can see, it is a real issue in the web sector. So I'm going to, please come on. I'm going to give you some advice on how to reduce your carbon footprint. But just before I do it, I thought I'd just explain how the carbon is actually generated and the process and what happens behind the scenes when you go to a website. So all websites are stored on a server. And then when you visit the site, it's got to deliver those images and content to a browser, like Chrome, Safari, and then to your computer. So in that data transfer from server to browser to computer, that's where the carbon footprint is generated. Okay, so what can you do to reduce your footprint then? Well, the first piece of advice is measure your website's carbon footprint. So there's lots of free tools out there. There's website carbon.com, which gives you, a fairly kind of a good starting point, I would say. It's kind of an ABCD sort of grade. And then if you wanted to get more granular, more precise, there's tools like digitalcarbon.online, which is a great tool. I would say it's probably the most sophisticated tool online. We're really telling you which elements of your website are creating the footprint. And there's also another tool called BioScore as well, but BioScore, those are paid for services though. So second of all, make your web agency aware of the issue and show them that you care about minimizing your site's impact. And then the main element of a website that creates footprint is media, so images or video. So again, relatively simple thing for you guys to do is just look at the images on your site and can you compress them? And crucially, think about the resolution of images that you're uploading. So mobile phones these days create very high resolution imagery. So if you just take a picture and then upload it to your site, that's the worst thing you can do. So I'll give you a little case study. We were tasked with reducing a client's carbon footprint, and we looked at the site, and the simple thing like the logo in the top corner was on every page. And we looked at the file, and it was 3,000 pixels wide and it was 1 meg in size. Whereas actually it was only being outputted and displayed on the site 1,000 pixels. So first of all, we reduced it from 3,000 to 1,000. So that saved half a meg of data. We then changed the format from PNG to SVG. The format has a big impact, so I'll come on to that. And then we put it through an image compressor, and there's loads of free online image compressors you can use, which compressed it a further 73%. So the overall result was we took a simple logo file from 1 meg down to 77 kilobytes. There's a 93% reduction without having any impact on resolution or the website at all. So you multiply that across all the images on a website, and you can see how images can play a massive factor in your carbon footprint. So I mentioned formats. There's lots of different formats out there. JPEG is okay. It compresses images. WebP is better. It's a more modern file format. Illustrations or logos tend to be lower file size if they're an SVG or a GIF. So we tend to favor those. Video now, there is a new file format called AV1, which is much better than the old MP4 or MOV file formats as well. Next, how you host your images is really important. I know Bethan's going to talk about web hosting, so I won't tread on her toes too much, but we use CDNs, so content delivery network, to deliver images and videos. So the way that works is you upload one file to a CDN, and then it will automatically deliver the right resolution for the user's device. So if a user's on the bus, on their phone, poor resolution, it will only deliver a low resolution image. Now that has a big impact, not only on footprint, but also on performance. And you know, everything I'm going to say today, there's also a commercial benefit. It's not just about doing the right thing environmentally. If you have a lower carbon website, it's also faster, which is better for SEO, better for conversion, and just a better experience all around. Okay, the next big thing is video. So simple things, you know, don't autoplay videos, host them on platforms like YouTube or Vimeo. Don't host them directly on your website. And also keep them to a minimum. And that also applies to images. So the next thing is, you know, think about the website design. Do you need an image to convey a message? We've all been conditioned to thinking you need image on the left, text on the right, image on the left, text on the right. But that's not always the best way to convey a message. Sometimes just really well-written copy, nice typography, nice colors can convey the message better. Sometimes the illustration is better than a photograph, and illustrations are much lower file size, generally speaking. And I can show you a few examples of how this is brought to life as well. Now, there's coding. I won't get too techie here, but if there are any programmers in the room, then you know, clean, well-structured code, lazy loading elements. So when you get to a page, only load in elements as the user gets to them. That can save on footprint. Minimize and compress CSS and JavaScript. Limit the number of third-party scripts and plugins that you use, and block unnecessary bots as well. So I just wanted to share with you how we've kind of embodied all of these principles into our own website, just to show you, just to put it in context. So just bear with me, I'll share my screen. So this is our own SOZO site. You can see this is our home page. And what we've done here is just use nice typography, illustrations, nice rollover effects. Yes, we have an image here, but it's quite small, and the video only plays if you hit play. And then these product cards here, or case study cards, the graphic is actually just a color. So this is done with code. And then the image is quite small. And then here, just simple text on a background. So here we haven't used any images so far. We're a long way down our home page. but it's still, hopefully you'd agree, it's still impactful and engaging. And even these that you often see on websites, blog articles with a random stock photo next to them. But you have to question: is it really necessary? Can the heading of the title just be enough on its own? And so that's our homepage. And then we took things a little bit further. We thought from the ground up. We really thought with this, like, how can we get the highest possible carbon score? So we created this thing called eco mode. So if you click it, it then strips out certain elements. So, for example, it changes the gradient to a solid color. It's gone to dark mode. So dark mode uses less energy. And it's converted color images into black and white. We did this throughout the whole website to highlight the issue. And now this scores an A+ grade for carbon. And also, I'm very proud to say this won an international award last week in Best Sustainable Web Design, this feature. So yeah, all really proud of that. But hopefully those that little whistle-stop tour sort of highlights the ways in which you can reduce your footprint. I'll just stop sharing. Okay. Now, Camilla did ask me to touch on AI as well. So this could be a whole other webinar, but I will just give my 2 pennies worth. Obviously, there's been a massive explosion in AI, which is creating an enormous carbon footprint, because there's no getting around it. AI is not green when in the use of it and the generation of the models and use of the AI engines. They use an enormous amount of energy, and they require massive data centers to be built, which is going on all around the world, and they require enormous amounts of water to cool them. So that's negative. Now, on the positive, you could argue there could be a positive benefit in terms of the climate context, in terms of increased productivity. So if you can code a website much quicker or do a task much faster, then you're using less energy in terms of your computers and your time in travel. We did another example. We did an e-commerce site recently where normally we'd organize a massive photo shoot with models and photographers and locations, which require lots of travel, create lots of carbon. But instead, we generated all the images via an AI tool. So that did save an enormous amount of carbon. Also, some people argue that AI will help accelerate our solutions to climate change. So things like how we harness solar power or carbon capture, or just study the issue. People could argue that AI will help in that regard, which could offset some of the footprint. And finally, the 2 biggest players, Microsoft and Google, they are making very bold claims about being net zero or net negative, and have big commitments in that regard. Because ultimately, the footprint comes from the use of energy, and energy can be 100% renewable in theory. The embodied carbon you can't really get around in terms of data centers and the infrastructure, but the energy used can be green in theory.